Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is exit. And in the past, I've had some students tell me that this can be a challenging word to say, and it's because of that letter X. In this word, the letter X is making two sounds. It's making a G and then a Z sound, so it's exit. So now that we feel a little more confident in how we're going to pronounce this word, let's take a look at some of the definitions. The first way people use the verb exit is to mean to go out or to leave a place. People might use this as they're describing walking out of some place. You might even hear it in connection to a vehicle, right? When somebody leaves it, you might also hear that particular verb used. A second way you might hear the verb exit used is if you're involved in theater production. So when someone leaves the stage as part of a performance, you might hear this word used, or you might even see it written down as part of the stage directions. A third way the verb exit gets used is to mean to leave a particular situation. Sometimes this verb is used in connection to various or many different types of competitions. They could be sports, they could be talent types of performances. But when someone leaves that situation or they leave the competition, right, you'll hear this verb used to describe that. A fourth way you might hear exit used is in connection to technology. So sometimes with computers, with laptops, or other electronic devices, when a program or some type of process is ended, you might hear that being called exiting, right? You should know that exit is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing to form exiting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Our base verb, exit, ends in a T sound. This means that our past tense ending is going to make an id sound, and we're going to add an extra syllable to the word when we say it. It should sound like this: exited, exited. Okay. Now, there aren't any additional phrasal verbs that we need to study today, so now we can move on and do a little bit of verb tense practice. Today, I'm going to talk about the imperative and the present perfect with our verb of the day. Let's start with the imperative. The imperative is used to give a command, to tell someone to do a particular action. And what's special about the imperative is that there is no stated subject, right? So if you're a regular watcher of my videos, you might know most of my sentences begin with I, we, right? You, they, or a name, a noun of some kind. But we don't do that in the imperative. And the reason for that is the subject is implied. It's the person you are communicating to, right? So that can be you singular or you plural, right? If you're talking to a group. So when we make sentences in the imperative, we can just begin the sentence with the base verb. We're not going to add any suffixes or special endings to the verb. Okay? Now, for some of my students, I've had them tell me that, oh my goodness, I'm nervous. It feels uncomfortable to use the imperative to tell somebody to do something. So one way to maybe make it a bit more polite would be to use the word please. You can put please at the beginning of a sentence or please at the end, but you don't need it in both spots. One is just fine. You can see that in my affirmative example. It says, please exit to the right. Okay. Now, you might hear a sentence like this in a number of different ways. Sometimes as I've been leaving a museum or a certain exhibit within a museum, right? And someone is directing you to walk or leave the space in a particular way. You might hear that. Sometimes when I've ridden a roller coaster, an amusement park ride, right? They want all the people to leave or walk out in a particular direction. So those might be some situations where you hear a sentence like that. But now let's talk about negative imperative. To make a negative imperative sentence where we're telling someone not to do an action, you can say do not and then the base verb, or you can use the contraction don't and then the base verb. But again, no suffixes here. Let's take a look at another example sentence. Don't exit your car when it's in an automatic car wash. Now, this seems like a very obvious thing, but I have heard people say, I've seen signs, right? We've got a bunch of machines working, right? It's not safe for you to get out or leave your vehicle in an automatic car wash. Now you'll notice kind of a black rectangle on my screen noting we don't make questions in the imperative, right? So that's why you're not seeing a question example there. But I think we're ready to move on to the present perfect. We use the present perfect to describe a couple different types of actions. One might be an action that occurred in the past, but at an unknown point. We might call this the indefinite past tense. Another way it gets used is to describe an action that started in the past and it continues into the present. Now, when we make present perfect statements, I'm going to need two parts to my verb, and I'm going to need to pay attention to my subject. If my subject is I, you, we, or they, I'm going to use have, and then I'm going to use the participle form of the verb. And here, exit is a regular verb, so my participle is the same as the past tense. Okay? Now, if my subject is he, she, or it, I'm going to use has and then the participle form of the verb. You can see this in my example sentence. The developer has exited the $100 million mixed-use project in the downtown district. Okay. This is going to tie back to the third definition of the verb, so leaving a particular situation. Here, it might have been some sort of business deal where someone planned to have a large property that maybe had commercial or kind of sales and residential space all sort of combined into one area. But for whatever reason, this person is no longer participating. They have exited. Okay? Now, let's take a look at making a negative sentence. Again, I pay attention to my subject so that I know to use either has or have. But now I'm going to add not. You might also hear the contractions hasn't or haven't. And then we're going to have that participle form the verb. Here's another example sentence. They haven't exited the program yet. Right? So maybe this is a part of some kind of training, how to do something within several different programs or processes online, right? And right, something needs to be closed or ended before we can move to the next part. Finally, let's talk about making a yes or no question in the present perfect. To do this, I start with have or has, whichever form matches my subject. That subject comes next. Then you're going to see the participle form of the verb. Here's my last example. Has the entire marketing department exited the company? So again, going back to that third definition of leaving a particular situation. And here the situation is employment with this particular company, right? It would make you wonder what has happened that everyone possibly has now exited or has now left. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb exit. And the first word we're going to look at today is the noun form of this word. So the noun form has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. Just like our verb, the noun can also have a number of different meanings. We're going to talk about 4 ways to use the noun exit. The first is just to describe a way out of something, and it's really common to hear it used in connection to public buildings, public rooms, or vehicles. So, an example of this might be they ran out the rear exit. Right? So maybe we're describing somebody leaving a store after stealing something, right? And they're going out kind of the back, not the front. Now, a second way you hear exit used is in connection many times to our interstates or highways. So this can be a ramp where traffic leaves some major highway road or possibly even a traffic circle. So you might hear someone give you directions with take exit 181 and then go right. Okay. Now, a third way to use the noun exit is to refer to the act of leaving a particular place. An example of this might be she made an early exit from the meeting. We'll just say she left early. And then the fourth way you'll hear the noun exit used is to refer to the act of leaving some particular situation. So an example of this might be the team made a quick exit from the playoffs. So this just might mean they lost very quickly or convincingly they were not in the playoffs for very long. We've got 2 more related words to discuss, and the first that you might encounter is an exit poll. If you follow politics in the United States, you hear this many times on the day of our elections. And essentially what it is a survey that gets taken by different forms of media. So this could be like newspapers, television stations, etc. And they're asking voters who are leaving voting places kind of what did they think? What were, did they vote for this candidate or that candidate? How did they vote on this particular issue? And they record all of that information. Not that everyone will answer them, but they look to get a majority of people responding so that they can try and predict who is going to win. So an example of this in a sentence might be, exit polls are showing that the challenger will win in a landslide, right? So this is a very convincing victory, not something that's very close, right? They're going to win by a big margin. And the last related word we'll talk about today is the noun exit strategy. So this is someone's plan for ending involvement in something. And you might hear this a lot in connection to businesses. And that's going to be my example sentence here. The seminar will discuss exit strategies for small to medium-sized businesses. So this is how owners leave the business, right? Do they sell it? Do they make some other type of plan or arrangement so that they can maybe retire or just end their involvement in running a company, right? So thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.